Oh man, you would not believe my morning. I had to run out of town. I had some errands. There was an appointment. You know, it was all pre-scheduled. Nothing I can do. I'm but a leaf blowing in the wind. And I figure because I had a little bit of a gap between two of the errands, I would stop by a local bike shop because I was interested in asking some questions about like padded bicycle shorts or like they are versus my current gym shorts, training shorts, and looking at the bikes. And I wanted to get my sit bones measured, like the bones that are a part of the hip that are like the thing you position your weight against when you sit. And it turns out there's a lot of nuance to like the angle you sit at and like, you know, the width. And I've got wide hips, so I got them measured. Anyway, the long story short is that I got some seats that I want to try. And then I spilled a coffee all over the floor of the bike shop, which thankfully didn't hit anything or anyone, but I did lose aura. And then I went and got another coffee. And none of the coffee was that good anyway, so. How much aura do you have left then? Well, I figure it's kind of like location dependent. I don't have much aura over there. I'd like to think I have some aura elsewhere. Nice tweed jacket. Blosh, one more word out of you and you're banned for the rest of the day. What do you mean tweed? Watch yourself. Isn't Seattle go to for coffee? Yeah, but I wasn't in Seattle. Oh, that's true. That's true, Vermin. You're rustling over there. Tell me what shirt that is, you freak. It's a older double RL Navajo pattern Henley that I got off of eBay. I got it a while ago, and I haven't worn it yet because it's pretty difficult to style. But if I was gonna style it with anything, it'd be this. Guess there's no reason for it to be open. Cat update. They're very cute. That's your update. Posted this pic of Look at Ruben, man. What the hell is this guy on? Are you kidding me with this shit? Are you making fun of me right now? Is this a joke to you? The creature. La creatura. That's how I feel right now. It's pretty relatable. How are you guys doing? He's such a cute baby too. Oh, he's very, 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 very cute cat and so friendly. So friendly. We're doing fantastic. My tummy hurts. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. Good. How are you? I'm doing okay. Doing okay. Nationwide protests again today. Yeah, and I've heard from some people, by which I mean I saw on Twitter. Apparently, some folks aren't happy with the protest turnout. You got a favorite coffee spot in Seattle? Yeah, but I'm gatekeeping. What, folks? Well, from what I heard, it's that there weren't a lot of young people. It does kind of seem like it's all early millennials and Gen Xers. Whenever I see the clips, it's like older people, you know? You'd think there'd be a lot of younger people. But young people don't know how to protest. They just know how to eat hot chip and lie. Same thing happened in Poland. Young people didn't care about the fascists. They started to care later. I think it's just because it's cool to not care, you know? So for a lot of young people, it's like maybe in the abstract they see things are bad, but it's like, whatever, man. The world's fucked anyway. But the effects haven't started to set in yet, you know? Young people have also never seen a protest achieve much, probably. Yeah, well, they often don't. Unholy hell, that Elon pic. It does look like somebody stretching clay over a skull. Yeah. How old are you? I'm 31. But it's chilly out there. It is chilly out there. I have a Zoomer friend like this, prefers to take nothing seriously and just shrugs and goes, yeah, things suck, Lamau. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, like the resigned nihilism, basically. It's a pretty common attitude for young people at all times, but probably not the best way to respond to the current situation, I would imagine. Hmm. Fuck, dude, American protests suck. In Brazil, there'd be so much music and drums. Well, it's kind of like a community alienation thing. Not to bring everything back to urban design, but like it is because historically, when protests happened, it wasn't like you would get up and be like, I will drive to the protest, and then you park near the protest and then go to the protest or whatever. It would be like there would be an organic outpouring of people from the streets. Like literally your neighborhood or your whole college or whatever, you know? Like it wouldn't just be like I am going to attend the protest. It would be this like broad, you know, social push. That's one of the reasons why the BLM protests were attended by so many people, because there was so much of an outcry. You get like momentum to these protests, you know? I think it might also be maybe young people aren't really interested in this rhetoric because it's basically like we don't want people like Trump. We want people like President Biden. President Biden followed the law, you know? Like that might not be a message that sells with young people kind of, because if your only problem with Trump and Musk is that they're like blatantly violating the law, I don't know, it doesn't really. I think a lot of young people want Bernie Sanders to rule America with an iron fist. Basically. It's cute. It's cute, you know, whatever. I'm not gonna. Y'all would need some hyperinflation to discipline your butts. I don't really know what would need, like, what economic shock would be necessary to get the young people really involved, because young people have just kind of gotten used to the idea that rent should cost 65% of your income and everything else is relatively inexpensive. Like, groceries are not expensive in America. Luxury electronic goods, appliances, all pretty inexpensive in America, you know? It's literally just rent, like rent is the big, and medical bills, not just rent, but you know what I mean. Just a few massive costs because of you know, rampant speculation for profit industry, so on. Um, DoorDash, the largest and most precious backbone of American economic well-being. What am I even saying? The Save Our Services protest is happening on February 19th for supporting federal workers. Yeah, see, this is kind of what I mean, I guess. And again, I'm not shit-talking the protesters or the nature of the protest or anything like that. I just think that people are so disillusioned right now that a lot of people, especially young people, are in favor of literally any change. So any protest that's like, we don't like the changes they're bringing, might not be able to bring over that constituency, you know? Because from their perspective, they're like, well, what were these federal workers doing for me anyway? You know? Utah passed the bill to kill unions for teachers, firefighters, and other public servants. Yeah, that sounds about right. I genuinely think hating on the Dems will definitely bring them out. Yeah, I think to a large extent, though that might alienate a lot of the resist libs. Difficult coalition to balance. If there's an ounce of nuance or thinking that needs to be done, kids won't care. No, 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 no. I'm not shit talking the kids here. This isn't me shit talking them for being dumb or whatever. It's just like pro status quo messaging does not resonate with them at all, you know? They are dumb though. Yeah, but like people in general are dumb. Are we going to pretend that Gen Xers are smart? Are we going to pretend that like rural Pennsylvanian voters are smart? People are dumb. Might only be me, but I'm just not aware when protests occur. It probably doesn't help that the Democrats don't do anything to amp up the messaging. Like the Democrats do not mobilize their federal soapbox to try to instigate action at all. Whereas like the Republicans constantly signal boost and engage like on every level all the time. Republicans are signal boosting protests and like working with their content creators and grifters and messaging people to make sure everyone's like on board with the message at this moment, you know. Just yeah, no coordination from the top. You do have some individual Democratic reps who try to via their own social media pages, but it's not the same as the like a consistent across the board messaging that you would need to get from the party as a whole, which, you know, it's definitely pretty like bad that Democrats don't have a leader at all. Like, no one actually thinks Jeffries or Schumer are leaders, not meaningfully, you know? Who the fuck is the leader right now? Because Kamala Harris and Biden went, good night, y'all, and they fucked off. You know, Obama is just here to post his, like, Spotify Wrapped every year. He doesn't give a shit, you know? Ken Martin disappeared. Well, Ken Martin isn't meant to be a leader. He's not an elected official. Ken Martin's a bureaucrat. You know, he's not. He was never going to be like the head of public messaging. Obama was unfortunately a rat. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll see what comes of it. Things might ramp up when it's warmer too. You don't want Obama back. He didn't do anything but lead the world down this path. Dude, when people like hype up Obama for a third term, like, you know, like a joke or whatever, um, it fills me with so much despair. When you get like 250,000 likes, Black Twitter is like, yo, Obama's gonna come back, you know? Oh, you want Trump for a third term? He's back. And it's like, damn, he's not doing shit. He's not gonna fix any of this. We're so far past that point. Also, he wouldn't want to. They're saying the trans man that got tortured to death was not a hate crime. Um, is there any evidence that it was? Like, apart from the obvious implication, but like, in order to rule it a hate crime, you would need like text messages or any evidence like that. You know what I mean? Like the prosecutors aren't going to make that assumption just based on the victim being a member of a minority group. You need to substantiate it with you know, some evidence to that point. Though obviously, you know, given the circumstances, I think it's reasonable in a non-courtroom sense to assume that it probably was a hate crime. For me as a young person, it's mostly hard to see what a solution could be, but I'm also 18 and not as experienced. I don't know what the fuck to do about Walmart chasing out smaller grocery stores, but I know Walmart is bad, but I feel powerless. Yeah, well, you can't really do anything about that. Like, as an individual, you have no ability. People with the, like, vote with your wallet, just go to the, you know, local craft grocery store that's twice as expensive, that appeals to, you know, upper middle class housewives. It's that you're, like, yeah, you can't boycott Walmart. You can barely boycott anything, certainly not Walmart. You know, it's a systemic thing. And try the best in the... I genuinely think the best way to spite the system and the thing they can never take from you is just learning how to cook. I mean that, okay? It is shocking how much you can slim down the cost there just by knowing how to cook. Wow, so you're trying to kill my burrito taxi driver's job? I might be. I might be. Is progressive victory still a thing? Somebody doesn't watch my videos or all my streams. Yeah, but electric and natural gas prices, that shit doesn't. You cooking is not meaningful. The amount you save by cooking rather than ordering food or eating out or whatever else is so much greater than the cost of using your oven from time to time. Get an air fryer, man. Life-changing. Mexican food is so easy to make. That's my go-to. Yeah. Sorry, I just got here. Did we already cover the Zionists who attacked the two Israelis? I'm sorry, wait. Do you mean you mean the lunatic Zionist who thought the two Israelis were Palestinian and shot at them, and then the two Israelis who were accused of being Palestinian survived, and then they accused the person of shooting them of being Palestinian? Do I have that correct? It's in Miami, right? Idiot on idiot violence. Basically, what I'm saying is through a series of Looney Tunes hijinks, I think you could actually, you could basically like eliminate settler colonialism in the Levant. You just need to do enough like Bugs Bunny, rabbit season, duck season bullshit, and you would basically solve the whole thing. You know? Just running through an IOF base, screaming, there's a Palestinian here, and like pointing at every guy you see. Just, you know, you could... They do a lot of friendly fire. Jewish man mistakes two Israeli tourists from Palestinians, open fires on them in Miami. The victims reportedly posted death to Arabs on social media after shooting while suspect held in attempted murder charges. It's cinema. It's crazy. While in custody, Braffman spontaneously... Here, I'll just say, a Jewish man in Miami Beach is facing charges of attempted murder following accusations that he opened fire on two men he believed were Palestinians, but reportedly turned out to be Israeli visitors. According to arrest documents, at 9:30 p.m. on Saturday, surveillance video footage appeared to show Mordecai Braffman, 27, getting out of his truck and opening fire with a semi-automatic handgun at a vehicle as it passed. Braffman allegedly fired 17 times, striking one victim in the left shoulder and grazing the other's left forearm. While in custody, he spontaneously told detectives that while he was driving his truck, he saw two Palestinians and shot and killed both, arrest documents said. The two men were actually vacationing Israelis, Ari Rabbi and his father. Phenomenal. Further complicating the incident, one of the injured men reportedly posted death to the Arabs in a message on social media after the shooting. My father and I went through a murder attempt against anti-Semitic background. Incredible. I'm telling you, it's like duck season, rabbit season shit. This is so insanely stupid. Yeah, but, you know, they're Israelis, so it's kind of what you'd... This is about the level I'd get. Probably the Nazis did a lot of this shit too, right? You know, he's Jewish. No, he's Jewish. Like one guy gets caught, you know, catches his friend fucking his wife or something, and they both like get dragged in by the Gestapo. Both are accusing the other guy of being Jewish, you know? I I saw him. He was praying to a Jewish god. I saw it. He was, I don't know, there was a drawing symbols on the ground or something. I don't know. Take him away. Just fucking. Was the shooter also Israeli or just Jewish? I don't know. Zionist. I don't know if he was actually Israeli. I do hate that they call him Jewish, because I feel like calling this guy Jewish would be like if a Christian nationalist committed a crime and they just called him a Christian. You know what I mean? Like the association of Judaism with Zionism. I grew up around a lot of Jews. They don't normally go like gunning down people just randomly. You know, it's, I don't know. Look at his face in the mugshot, just so smugly wrong. Incredible. I don't even know what to say. Behold the master race. I mean, a lot of Zionists do legitimately believe, like, they're Nazis. They believe the whole thing. You know, the whole like Jewish chosen people thing in the text. Like, if you actually talk to a rabbi, it doesn't mean they're better or whatever. It means like the Jewish people are chosen in the sense that God pointed to them, and God was like, "You can't eat bacon. That's your burden. You've been chosen to not eat bacon," or something like that. Like you're burdened with God's. You have a set of expectations. It doesn't mean you're like better or whatever, you know? I think for a lot of Zionists though, they just think they're better, you know, like unironic Jewish supremacists. Certainly over Arabs. Kind of a shit deal, I think. Yeah, why do you think Jews complain all the time? More like you're chosen to live up as an example to the world? Yeah, by not eating bacon. Anyway, it's pretty funny. Don't you think he looks like a ventriloquist doll? He does kind of look like a ventriloquist doll. That is true. Yeah. It's got a very sharp line on the edges of the mustache, you know? Palestinian panic defense. Isn't that literally real? Wasn't there a Palestinian guy who got arrested and charged and convicted in Israel because he said he was not Arab while sleeping with a Israeli woman? And then when she found out that he wasn't Israeli and was in fact Arab, she accused him of rape, and he was arrested. Yeah, this was like a big deal, right? Does no one else remember this? It has a Wikipedia article. Oh. New polls dropped. The fuck am I looking at? Let me translate. You under 18 federal election 2025 final election result. Wait, is this polling or is this election results? Under 18s can't vote. So it's a mock election. It's a mock election? That's interesting. I think I like that. I think I like that as a concept. And Die Linke is on top with the under 18s. Die Linke, SPD, CDU, AFD. And then Green, and then whoever cares. I'm glad that Die Linke is on top, though it's still pretty disheartening that CDU and AFD are like together basically the same size as SPD and Die Linke, you know? I'm glad that what is it, BSW? The Wagenknecht party? I'm glad that's not getting a lot of attention. That's good. D-Linka massively stepped up their social media game the last 2 months. They're beating the AFD in likes per month. Well, that's good. Who are they? D-Linka is the left that I think has been weirdly sympathetic to Russia, but maybe less so now. SPD are the ineffective liberals. CDU are the ineffective conservatives. AFD are Nazis. Green Party is the the kind of left. They've been leaning off the environmental stuff, but they're to the left of SPD, but I don't know. The BSW, the Wagenknecht party, is just pro-Russia. They're just like a populist pro-Russia. Most of the pro-Russia guys ran to the BSW. Well, that's good. FDP? I don't know about FDP. I don't know about that. Nor do I know anything about the Tierschutzpartei. I don't know what that is either. Not that kind of guy. The FDP are the libertarians, Cuckdan caps. Okay. What about the Tierschutzpartei? I can't read that very well. Animal Protection Party? So they're like environmentalists? Minor left-wing party? Okay. Well, altogether, you know. Shame these guys can't actually vote. Toddler elections. It's good to encourage participation in stuff like this, you know? What have I been provided? Even the most disturbing RFK Jr. headline always manages to have a detail inside creepier than you could have imagined. I'm sorry, did you just say? I don't know. A Washington Post review of Kennedy's public appearances found he also promoted these centers as particularly beneficial for black youth. Every black kid is now just standard put on Adderall, on SSRIs, benzos, which are known to induce violence. Yeah, RFK Jr. has a lot to say about black people, doesn't he? Remember his, like, black people need to be given a different vaccine schedule because their immune systems are different? Those kids are going to have the chance to go somewhere and get reparented to live in a community where there will be no cell phones, no screens. Oh yeah, this is him talking about the Adderall farms where people who have Adderall prescriptions are sent to graze like upstate. Reparented, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, in this case, it literally means like, well, I guess it's not even a this case thing, right? He's talking about like ripping black kids away from their parents and sending them to farms to work. Which I think we used to do that. I think we used to have a system for that. Could be wrong. Yeah, what is the every black kid is now just standard put on Adderall? Isn't it black kids have a lower per capita incidence rate of neuroatypicality and like prescriptions that follow? I think this is bullshit. I've heard the opposite of this. Isn't the stereotype that it's white kids? Yeah, I know that's not really like a good heuristic to go off of, the stereotype or whatever, but yeah, my understanding was that... Wait, you're telling me they're sending the kids with ADHD to concentration camps? RFK Jr., in a podcast appearance some time ago, though he mentioned this more than once, said that people who take ADHD or whatever, like, basically, this was in an executive order. He's saying these medications are overprescribed. Too many people have chronic illnesses. We're overprescribing the medicine. We need to evaluate whether or not the medicine does anything good or if it's harmful. And we need to take kids or just people in general who are addicted to these medicines, and we need to send them to a free-range ADHD wellness camp. So rather than curing your ADHD with Adderall or whatever, you go to a big, like, farm, basically, where you aren't on your phone all dang day, and you get to talk to people, and it cures your ADHD. Basically, he believes exactly what I believe, vis-a-vis that conversation we had about autism. I'm just not as authoritarian about it. I want you guys to make the choice to go to a farm upstate and be off your phones for a bit, okay? But he doesn't believe in the choice element, so that's I have ADHD and I've never taken Adderall. Would you recommend taking it? If it works for you, talk to your doctor. Varies person to person. That's the Vosh difference. He also believes in the racial element. Well, I do too, just the opposite direction. Where if you're white, you definitely need to go to the farm. Hmm. Has there ever been a fascist takeover in a country that has as many guns per capita as the US? I don't think there's a country with as many guns per capita as the US, so probably not, right? ADHD meds are a controlled substance. I don't think there's much else they can do. The scheduling of medications is controlled by the Department of Health and Human Services. RFK Jr. could literally just break all of it. Like, so, like it literally, it's all downstream of FDA guidelines. Their scheduling, like they could do whatever they want. This is not like a state by state thing. He has that much power? Yes. He's the head secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He has a huge amount of power. Yeah. Wouldn't Big Pharma get upset with him, though? I don't know. Maybe just make insulin cost more? Never thought I'd pray for Big Pharma. Never thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf. What the fuck is this? We haven't even talked about the plane flipping yet. People keep giving me links. Inside the Zizians? What the fuck is a Zizian? How a cultish crew of radical vegans became linked to killings across the United States. What is this? Is this important in any meaningful way, or is it just like a human interest story?
And tragedy. Northern California, a radical vegan group.
Of course, it's fucking Northern California. It's always up there. Vosh controlled substances are regulated by the DEA, not the HHS. Yeah, but their scheduling isn't the only thing that matters. What also matters is the guidelines for prescription and what their like recommended use is, and that is controlled by the HHS. Can't he revoke approval? Yes, they can do whatever they want. Also, they control the DEA anyway. Yeah, the FDA controls the scheduling, the DEA just enforces, right? It doesn't matter, they control all of it.
Group known as the Zizians emerged, linked to 6 mysterious deaths. Their story intertwines with a complex web of ideology and tragedy. In 2019, 4 masked protesters disrupted a retreat of the Center for Applied Rationality, accusing it of various wrongdoings. The protest, led by Ziz, ended with police intervention and allegations of mistreatment. Ziz, a vegan computer scientist, developed a unique philosophy blending rationalism.
Glorps in chat if you remember the real Ziz.
and anarchism. According to a vegan computer scientist, developed a unique philosophy blending rationalism and anarchism. According to her blog, Ziz failed to secure a steady job and a place to live, all while transitioning to female and facing prejudice for it. Her beliefs, centered on animal rights and anti-establishment ideals, attracted a following of young, ideologically driven individuals. Tensions escalated in Vallejo, California, where Ziz's group clashed with landlord Curtis Lind. A violent confrontation left Lind and a tenant injured and another tenant dead, leading to murder charges against group members. As the group scattered, further violence unfolded, including a deadly shootout in Vermont. The enigmatic Ziz remains elusive, her influence casting a long shadow over a series of tragic events.
Cool. Who is this Ziz? Didn't you hear the enigmatic Ziz? You don't know. It's always Silicon Valley, isn't it? Completed an internship at NASA. Like many tech workers, she'd been drawn to the rationalist subculture and the closely intertwined effective altruist movement. Okay, so psychopath. I mean, obviously we already knew that based on the whole like cult murder shit. Listen, okay? If you're getting a bad read off someone, I'd rather someone be a cultist murderer than a fucking effective altruist, okay? Christ, that shit's crazy. She shared some rationalist belief that AI would soon attain godlike power and destroy humanity if not... Yeah, they're all the same people. It's all of these fucking Silicon Valley schizo freaks who treat AI like it's some kind of god. They're anti-sociological. They literally like don't believe in society. And all of their belief systems like round back to how do I like most rapidly accumulate power and influence for myself at the expense of others, while also feeling like doing so is like the mandate of humanity. Like you're not just doing it for selfish reasons. You're actually like fulfilling a preordained, you know, scripture of your ascension that is to the benefit of all. You know, it's just psycho shit. There's so many people in Silicon Valley that are like this. Even so, she found friends among the rationalists. One of them was Gwen Danielson, another trans woman who developed a psychological theory that every person has multiple personalities within themselves, as well as techniques meant to awaken these personalities. We just need to arrest everyone in Silicon Valley. All of these people are mentally ill. Look at how she parts her hair, fucking psycho. You're calling people out in chat who probably don't want to be called out, but I understand. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Ziz and Danielson embarked on a plan to build a rationalist fleet of rehabilitated old boats that could offer cheap housing to talented young compatriots, freeing them to devote their energies to saving the world. Classic cult shit. Classic, classic, classic. Oh, hold on. We have a guest. 1 second. Capella.
Hold on, careful. I picked her up and she yelled. So.
She active? She rowdy?
Yeah, careful. She's a little squirmy.
When is your belly fur gonna grow back? Wow. You're so wiggly. You're so wiggly. Leg. Hello. Hello. I love her socks. Yeah, she's got really cute little feet socks. She wants to run around. Be free. There she goes. Off on an adventure. Nope. All right, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Let me see. Cult shit. They bought a nearly century-old tugboat named the Caleb in Alaska and sailed it down to the coast of the Bay Area. Okay. forge links to a think tank. Danielson presented some of her psychological techniques at the 2017 CFAR alumni retreat. Meanwhile, on her blog, Ziz was developing her own branch of EA and rationalist philosophy, strange, dense, and full of unusual jargon, such as anti-ethics, dichotomy leakage, and timeless gambits. You know, part of being a public figure is that every once in a while, people will email me something that is essentially a manifesto, and it's always something along the lines of, Vosh, I think I have solved society. I think I have solved politics. Sometimes they're even like, I have developed a new grand unification theory of everything in like physics or whatever. Here is my massive document. Now I need you to bring this to the world. You know, you have the platform. I have the genius. It's time for you to basically like, this is your purpose now, is to like present this. And to the extent that I read these manifestos, which I largely don't, they are full of shit like this. Because everybody has, like, especially schizos, have a vague idea of what a, like, genius theorician sounds like, but because they're not one themselves, they only imitate the cultural understanding of what one is supposed to sound like, where you are constantly making up new terms and imposing jargon and trying to like force people to follow you down your like weird thought path rather than like building the argument up from the ground. Dark Souls NPC language, to a large extent, yes. See this shit all the time. You don't mean actual schizophrenic? I mean, they might be actual schizophrenics. Like, you know. It's happened at least half a dozen times in the 5 years that I've been doing this. Given all these absolutely insane beliefs, the inclusion of just vegan in the article title is meant to farm outrage. I agree. Like, it seems like the driving philosophy here that's leading to this cult is the like rationalist Silicon Valley shit. So like being trans, being vegan, these seem, at least at this point in the story, incidental. They don't seem to be like the driving, you know. Ultimately, her creed was anarchist and vegan. Uh-oh. You can't be anarchist while also being a effective altruist, okay? Come on. This isn't real whatever. People have been misusing the term for so long. She felt that she lived in a society of flesh-eating monsters. The most rationalist drastically undervalued non-human life. Any future super AI she believed must benefit animals too. That's great. The deck of the Caleb. Holy shit. They slapped solar panels on this 100-year-old tugboat. Sure. I mean, whatever. Kind of goes hard. There's an aesthetic here. There's an aesthetic here. Solar panels love to be walked on. That's my understanding too of solar panels. Cult falls apart. Da-da-da. Protested at CFA. Things are going great, I assume. A deadly confrontation at a California trailer yard. Is this the 80-year-old landlord? This guy looks amazing for 80. They were unhappy with living on the tug. They decided they wanted to move to my yard and buy moving vans. They could live in the moving van. Nobody would know they're in there. He described himself as pretty friendly with some of them, friendly enough that I took one of them to Walmart to buy her first bra. Okay, yeah, this seems like cult shit. Seems pretty like, you know, par for the course, I guess. In August 2022, Ziz faked her death. Oh, man. On the day, Lind alleged one of the tenants tricked him into bending down to turn off the water supply and then attacked him without provocation, driving a samurai sword into his chest. At that time, I pulled out my pistol and started shooting. I would also do that if somebody stabbed me with a katana, I think. Ta-da. Sorry, the reason I'm not reading this is because this is getting a little bit more granular. Why does America churn out endless cults? A sick society with a lot of empty space in between the cities. And yeah, and no mental health care, exactly. Huh. Well. Sorry, I don't... I guess I don't have a strong conclusion to that. I was mostly reading it out of, like, my own personal interest in the subject. Because it's pretty wild. I don't really have, like, a cap off to that. It's not really a segment. I'm just reading it. Can we discuss why the Australians plus Fox are celebrating 1.9 billion in Doge findings? That seems a little bit misleading. When you say Australians, do you mean Sky News Australia? I.e. the news company that is owned by Rupert Murdoch, the same person who owns Fox News? That doesn't really seem like you can pin that one on Australia. That seems like you know, pretty much just Rupert Murdoch kind of deal. Am I reading this wrong, or is this a federal bill aiming at the elimination of trans healthcare? There's no info, just the title text. To amend Title 18 U.S. Code to provide for certain rules for housing or transportation based on gender, and to provide for a limitation on gender-related medical treatment. From, wow, Nancy Mace. I don't really know. I'm just kind of looking at the title. Nancy Mace, H.R. 1015. I don't think there is any info on this. Do you think she just, like, drunkenly typed this up and then forgot to add any body text or whatever? Like, she didn't want to put the effort in to write a few sentences for the actual... Like, literally, all this has just been referred to the House committee. Like, this is nothing, you know? Drunk, crying, typing this up, or dictating it to an intern who typed it up. What are the odds this passes? I don't know. We don't even know what the bill is. What do you mean, what are the odds this passes? There's no bill. What do you mean? It's fucking Nancy Mace. It's like the most unserious person in Congress next to Mike Lee. MTG. I think that Nancy Mace at this point is less serious than MTG. Okay. Finally, if we could just have a moment to talk about the thing that everyone saw this morning. Can somebody please explain to me what DEI and wokeness were doing to keep planes aloft in an ordinary fashion? Can somebody explain to me why a Delta Airlines flight is upside down in Canada? Because that's pretty wild. Why is it upside down? non-white people have superpowers? It might be that.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm John Dickerson in New York. We are coming on the air with breaking news. There has been an incident involving a Delta Airlines flight into Toronto. Flight 4819 appears to have flipped over following landing. The Toronto Pearson Airport released a statement on X saying, quote, emergency teams are responding. All passengers and crew are accounted for. The flight originated from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve joins me now. Chris, what do we know?
I don't even understand the physics of this. Like, I'm guessing, I don't know, wind and the ice and I don't even know. I don't even know. Just absolutely wild. Looney Tunes shit. It really is. Yeah.
Well, John, we understand that some federal officials are hearing reports of some injuries here, but again, the airport says everyone is accounted for. There are images trickling out that show this CRJ 900, which is a regional jet. It was operated by Delta's regional carrier Endeavor, but operating as a Delta flight. The plane appears to be upside down. The wings and tail ripped off. The nose landing gear still...
Insane no one died. Do you think this shit was fun? Like, if nobody died, do you think it was like, ooh, you know? Like, maybe it was like a little roller coaster ride? I mean, how does this even happen? It's like a Lifetime story. It's not even a plane crash. People have survived plane crashes. Who can say, no, the plane flipped? Yeah, I was in the plane when it flipped. Yeah, it was okay. I still had my seatbelt on, so I didn't fall and hit my head in the ceiling.
Still in place. People are being taken off the airplane. Medical crews have responded in Toronto. The Toronto Pearson Airport had gotten a significant amount of snow over the last week. In fact, over the weekend, they were working quite hard to clear. It had been about 7 inches of snow going into yesterday. So weather conditions there will be something that will certainly be looked at here. But we're looking at another...
Literally Google ground effect. The first images explain it. Why would I do that? You can't tell me what to do.
U.S. airliner, this one operated as a Delta connection flight that had an accident while or shortly after landing, in this case in Toronto. We don't know how many people are on board yet, but the airport says everyone is accounted for. We hear that there may be some injuries, but it does look like the cabin of the airplane, the passenger area of the plane remained intact fully when whatever went wrong, and it went wrong with enough force. It appears
I wish we had security footage of it
off
happening.
The airplane, and it came to rest there on a runway in Toronto. Assessed for injuries, it would be almost unfathomable to think that no one was hurt in this kind of accident. You had the midair collision over Washington, D.C. That killed 67 people.
I remember that.
Mean that everybody is at least okay.
And what's
it is been almost one major aviation accident per day since Trump took over. I don't know what to say other than it might genuinely be an act of God. This might be like a modern plague, you know? Like the Ramses of Egypt, back then it was like, oh yeah, we'll send frogs after you. Nowadays that doesn't make sense. They're like, we'll just fuck your planes up. Isn't birds falling from the sky a whole trope? Shit, yeah, I think I remember that verse from the Prince of Egypt. Basically just keeping appraised, right? You think God's not up with the times? He's already got the switch too. I really wish we had video of it flipping. Oh, I want it. Post from Delta News Hub. No fatalities, 18 customers with injuries. Canceled its flights, and from YYZ for the remainder of the evening, it has issued a travel waiver. Okay, yeah, nothing interesting here. If the plane was landing at an American airport, the plane would have exploded. It's only because Canada still has some wokeness and DEI left, that they were able to hold it together. It would have been much worse if it had been a Toronto to, I don't know, America flight. I don't know what where it took off from. Minneapolis? If it had landed in Minneapolis, the plane would have caught fire on the tarmac and exploded. The helicopter is upside down and burning. Helicopter pilot describes scene after Toronto runway crash. But it didn't explode. It doesn't seem like anyone has an explanation for why it happened yet, though. Like, I mean, obviously you can Google a potential explanation. That's not the same, though. Toronto Airport authorities to hold media briefing shortly on crash. 6:30 ET. That's 19 minutes from now. It hit a moose while landing? Maybe. Not the moose. The moose is fine. They're pretty sturdy. I think gravity is dying. That might be it. Or is that one tweet about Pete Buttigieg being the 40K emperor and his psychic barrier protecting us? You're saying from the Astronomicon, Pete Buttigieg was like protecting all U.S. flying air vessels as they navigated the warp, and now as the light dims, they're cast astray into the infinite cosmos. Yeah, it's possible. It makes sense. Being randomly flipped upside down seems like the kind of like low tier shit that might happen after a bad trip through the warp. Well, I guess you can't really come out upside down when you're a spaceship in space, right? You're just sort of always right side up. Much to think about. Someone made a Project 2025 tracker. About a third of it has been implemented so far. Well, that's good. Support transparency. Buy me a coffee. How much of Project 2025 was successful? It's been 1 month. Less than a month? It's been about a month. Don't be a pedant. Thankfully, all through executive order instead of law. Yeah, but they'll probably pass it through laws. Well, I don't know how much that matters. Vosh, you think we need to call for a second Continental Congress? Don't ask stupid questions. What the fuck are you talking about? Call for a Continental... You're just saying shit. Congratulations, we know. You know what the Continental Congress is, okay? You're just asking shit. You know, it's a classroom. You're raising your hand. This is what you contribute? It takes time and neurons for me to process reading the shit you type into chat. Just saying shit. Yeah, I see you. Concern you might have missed this. Plane crashes have been happening regularly for a while, even before Trump. It's obviously not DEI. I think it's DEI. I think it's DEI. Who cares? DEI for sure, yeah. DC house prices slash as Doge targets federal workers. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, a huge number of people who live in DC work in the federal government, so as they move out to cheaper places, finally some good fucking housing prices. Are you guys ready for DC to become Chud Central? We're going to see like the largest switch in demographic tendencies voting-wise in American history. DC votes over 90% liberal. Yeah, up until now. Ruben, what are you meowing about? Hold on one second. Ask him what he's meowing about. What are you meowing about? What are your eyes closed for? Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy? Mwah. Mwah. Little man. Where's the raw chicken? Probably huddling under a blanket for warmth, as she often is. My cat just attacked my laptop screen because of your cat. Your cat's on a goddamn hair trigger. Trump admin just repealed the rules requiring federal agencies to track the environmental impact of their decisions. That sounds cool. Hold on, we're getting one more.
So tired. I just woke her up. She's like, "What the fuck?"
One more cat exposure.
She's tired. She will flail.
Chicken. Chicken, you're so round. Yeah? You're so round and hiding from the camera and looking to escape. Ah. Silly.
He's desperate to lick her. Hey, you gonna go back to bed? You want to? My bad. She's very
All right.
confused.
No more distractions. Yeah, I bet she is. Okay. I'm back. Do you think she tastes like chicken? She smells a bit like mushrooms. Because hairless cats have different like body oils than non-hairless cats. Anyway. There it is. Removal of all NEPA regulations coming shortly. Interim final rule. Let's see. Removal of NEPA implementing regulations. Well, that's good. That's good. No baby rating. They're all perfect, okay? Hello, Capella. Oh my god. The fucking website is so broken, dude. I don't know if that's a consequence of the layoffs and budget cuts and stuff like that, but when I opened this, it was like glitching for 10 seconds before it finally finished. Congress enacted NEPA in 1969, signed into law to establish rational policy for the environmental law in the United States, the Magna Carta of federal environmental laws. Yeah, getting rid of this would be a pretty big deal. A lot of federal websites have been scrubbed. Yeah. Why don't we just erupt Yellowstone? Now that's accelerationism. It's going to take decades to repair the damage they do over the next 4 years. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Wait, you can't just get rid of half the federal workforce? Well, it's not just getting rid of the federal workforce, right? It's that, like, the federal workforce that remains is being tasked with not the best stuff. Climate change will be a huge motivator to fix things? Well, that's the hope. Aren't renewables taking over? Have you been paying attention to the political priorities of the current administration? You hear Donald Trump talk about solar and wind incentives very much? Maybe in a negative way. Also, new federal workers being employed are Trump's sycophants. Well, right now, new federal workers aren't being employed. They're just firing people, you know? Makes me think that they're going to have a very difficult time finding those sycophants. You know, you need people who are willing to work these federal jobs, to be bureaucrats. You know, it's difficult to ideologically screen at these levels. Don't know if they'll be able to. UK Reform MP installs solar panels to cut costs while openly calling renewables a con. They are all literally always lying. It's just like so much follows from that. Like they literally all of them at every level, all their politicians, all of their pundits, the only people on the right who aren't lying are the people stupid enough to believe the openly contradictory stuff the liars say. Reform isn't even a political party, it's a company. Well, I hope you don't live in the UK. I do not have good odds on the Labour Party keeping the position they currently hold for long. Enjoy your goddamn, you know, Tory Reform coalition next year. I do, sadly. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Election isn't until 2029. Well, that's good. The Labour Party is awful, but, you know, better them than fucking Tory Reform. Jesus. Good news on that front. Tories and Reform haven't been getting along. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Remember in Germany where it's like, oh, the AfD and the Conservatives will never work together. And then just like a few weeks ago, the Conservatives were like, actually, on immigration, we're willing to work with the Nazis. You know? It's like, I don't know. I've seen this play out before with Hindenburg. I feel like conservatives will actually kowtow. They keep doing it. It's like how a bunch of conservatives and companies distanced themselves from Trump after January 6th, but as soon as it became clear there would be no real consequences to working with him, they leaned back into it, you know? There are so many people and companies that are today openly working with Trump who, like, on January 7th, 2021 were like, this is a disgraceful act of, you know, authoritarian violence against the US. Trump must never be allowed near the White House again, that kind of shit. But it was fake. It's wild how Trump has completely destroyed the Canadian Conservatives' lead. Liberals are now tied with the Conservatives. Nice. Liberals are at 31% support. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are still in majority territory at 40, and Jagmeet Singh's New Democrats are far behind at 14. You think for this they'd be willing to coalition, the New Democrats and the Liberals? I mean, they have to, right? A new poll suggests that if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race, he would erase the massive lead the Conservatives enjoyed. A Ledger survey suggests a Carney-led party would boost Liberal support by 6 points to 37%, putting them in a dead heat with the Tories. Mark Carney, who is this guy? You don't need a majority in Canada? Well, you need to have more than the other guys. Economist and former governor of the Bank of Canada. Okay, so he's a piece of shit. All right, gotcha. Just anyone but Trudeau, huh? People seem to really like him, but why? He saved the Canadian economy in 2008. He prevented Canadian banks from doing what U.S. banks did. Carney's actions as the governor of the Bank of Canada are said to have played a major role in helping Canada avoid the worst impacts of the financial crisis. The epoch-making feature of his tenure as governor remains the decision to cut the overnight rate by 50 basis points in March 2008, only 1 month into his appointment. The balls on this guy. While the European Central Bank delivered a rate increase in July 2008, Carney anticipated the leveraged loan crisis would trigger global contagion. When policy rates in Canada hit the effective lower bound, the central bank combated the crisis with the non-standard monetary tool conditional commitment in April 2009 to hold the policy rate for at least 1 year and a boost to domestic credit conditions and market confidence. All right, I'm not going to lie. That's actually a pretty Sigma move. Anticipating the subprime mortgage crisis and going like, okay, actually we're going to dial it. We're going to crank it way the fuck back. Like day 2 of my tenure, you know? All right. The Canadian economy outperformed those of its G7 peers during the crisis. Canada was the first G7 nation to have both its GDP and employment recover to pre-crisis levels. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. All right, it's pretty impressive, you know? Good guy? Well, that doesn't make him a good guy. It means that he saw the writing on the wall and responded appropriately. You know? Not necessarily like an endorsement of him beyond that. Let's not go overboard. I'm glad he's competent, I guess. Canada's risk-averse fiscal and regulatory environment is also cited as a factor. In 2009, a Newsweek columnist wrote, Canada has done more than survive this financial crisis. The country is positively thriving in it. Canadian banks are well capitalized and poised to take advantage of the opportunities that American and European banks cannot seize. All right. I mean, you know, Governor of the Bank of England. The first non-Briton to be appointed to the role since the Bank of England was established in 1694. Man, they must have really liked him. Views. Wealth inequality. In 2011, Carney referred to the Occupy Wall Street protests as entirely constructive, citing frustrations being felt particularly in the U.S. over inequality increasing CEO worker pay gaps. All right. Carney warned of the societal risk of staggering wealth inequality in a Roscoe lecture at Liverpool John Moores University. The proportion of the wealth held by the richest 1% of Americans increased from 25% in 1990 to 40% in 2012. Globally, the share of wealth held by the richest 1% in the world rose from 1/3 in 2000 to 1/2 in 2010. Warned against Brexit. Said the economy wasn't ready for a no-deal Brexit. Monetary policy. He says the widespread use of the US dollar, the dominant currency pricing, in trade invoicing in place of the currency of either the producer or the importer has had a destabilizing effect on the global economy, according to Reuters. So this fucker plays a lot of Forex games, what I'm hearing? Probably. Carney urged central banks to collaborate in replacing the US dollar as reserve currency. I don't know. This guy might actually have some of the sauce to resist Donald Trump from Canada. Like, if he's an actual liberal who has like a competent grasp of the need for, like, you know, sort of like national autonomy when it comes to global banking and financial deregulation, that seems like kind of a natural counter, doesn't it? Not in the way a socialist would be, of course, but... wants to decrease the US dollar's domineering influence on trade worldwide. He does, however, want to scrap the capital gains tax increase. Liberal. Huge economic opportunity in the transition to a sustainable economy with reduced carbon emissions. In an interview with Jon Stewart. Oh, just a month ago. Okay, maybe I'm sleeping a little bit on this. That's mostly an election thing. That makes sense. In 2025, he mentions this, you know. He wants power. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't watch the Jon Stewart interview because it's on The Daily Show. Though the fact that he got the interview to begin with does signal a lot of attention, no? The rise of Mark Carney. You know, I'm warming up to this guy a little bit, you know? Again, he's still a filthy liberal, but competent liberal governance is far from the worst thing that could be heading Canada in a time like this. He's not even an MP right now. Sure, well, talking positively of him, you know, might be the way to get that. Besides, what Canadian MPs have a reasonable shot of replacing Trudeau in the coming election, right? Who's really gunning for it? No one? Okay, well, what seat would he be running for as an MP? He's in the lead by a massive margin. A safe one, probably somewhere in Ontario. Okay, like in America, you need to be living in the state you run as a rep in. Like, it's kind of district-based. In Canada, can he just, like, pop a squat in a district? And he's like, yeah, I live here. Give me the seat, please. Yeah, basically. Okay. All right. Yeah. He has to live there once elected. Okay, well, pretty easy, you know. It's not very difficult. I don't know what the requirements are necessarily. Bosch's pronunciation of Ontario makes me irrationally upset. So, Ontario! What are you... What are you, French? Fuck you. What do you want? Oui, oui. Ontario. Ontario. Oui, oui. I don't know what you want. Fuck you. You made your prime minister have to speak in 2 languages when addressing the nation. Isn't that enough? During his Liberal leadership campaign, Carney proposed replacing the existing consumer carbon tax with an incentive program to reward green choices while keeping tax on large industrial emitters. Promised to introduce a carbon border adjustment to penalize high-polluting foreign imports. I wonder who that's targeted at. In a 2025 interview, a carbon border adjustment. All right. Quebec is French, bro. The people in chat who are actually mad about that shit. How silly do you have to be to keep a Canadian from being self-righteous? You know what? No, never mind. I take it back. You know what? I want Canadians at full mast right now, okay? Sure, be annoying at me. I don't fucking care. I'm an American. You should hate my ass. Don't donate to me. Don't watch my content, okay? It's war. And it's a war that you're in the right on. Okay? I'm a conscientious objector in this war, all right? Totally unprovoked. Fuck Canadians. No, fuck Americans. We did this shit. Fuck, I just donated my Canadian dollars. I'll give them back. No, I won't. I was lying when I said that. It was a joke. It's an in the middle of Ontario. Ontario? Ontario? Like Terrio? Ontario? Ontario? Like that? Well, then maybe you shouldn't have made it an A, you fucking retards. I take it back. The war is back on. Thank God there are no cities or states in America with unconventional pronunciations. I did see this. Elon Musk says team behind CBS's 60 Minutes deserves a long prison sentence. I mean, now some of you liberals might be a little uncomfortable with the wealthiest man in the world and the shadow president accusing literally all media outlets they don't like of needing jail time. Some might say this is rather Hitlerian. I will say, however, and I do think there's a silver lining to this. I'm not just being, I'm not just being glib. Isn't it a little bit nice that Elon is spreading this so thin? Like, they've had a month. They could be building a case on social media for like a specific targeted legal attack. But it seems like they're just saying this about everyone. Now, I'm not saying that's not dangerous. I'm just saying it's like, you say this about absolutely everyone. You're only really like furthering your reputation as the guy who wants to jail all of his opposition, as opposed to, building a kind of unanimous consensus for the investigation and arrest of any given. They're not even going after AOC that hard. It's just like Tom Homan mostly, who's apparently doing like 16 interviews a day where he says, yeah, I think that Pam Bondi should look into whether or not it's illegal for AOC to explain people's constitutional rights to them. It is a very, like, scatterbrained presidency, which you'd think it wouldn't be, because they had all the time in the world to prepare. Also, everyone on top is like a hardcore loyalist now, you know? It's not like the first Trump administration where a bunch of the, cabinet secretaries are neocons. You'd think they'd have like a very directed, targeted message. The problem is the people who are loyalists are also retarded. That's true. Musk appeared to take issue with a report from Sunday's episode focused on what the Trump administration's moves at the U.S. Agency for International Development could mean for the future of other government agencies. 60 Minutes posted a graphic on its account on Twitter featuring a quote by former USAID Administrator Andrew Natsios, a Republican, refuting the Trump administration's claims that the agency needs to be reformed to cut out massive fraud. The most accountable aid agency in the world is USAID. Musk, who ignored the show's request for an interview, there's a reason why you don't see Musk doing any political interviews, by the way. The only political interviews that Musk has are with people like Tucker Carlson, like completely on board, no tough questions, you know? Replied to the post, citing a clip of the unedited 60 Minutes interview correspondent Bill Whitaker taped with Vice President Kamala Harris in the fall, which is the subject of a lawsuit Trump brought against CBS. 60 Minutes are the biggest liars in the world, Musk said. They engaged in deliberate deception to interfere with the last election. They deserve a long prison sentence. To be fair, Musk does say this every day about a new group of people, multiple times a day even. Is it not kind of toothless? He is an insanely powerful guy. I feel like you're really diminishing the power of your station when you're saying stuff like this all the time and nothing happens, right? Like, you're not actually these people aren't actually getting arrested. Like, he has all the power in the world, but if a king in a monarchy was like, arrest that guy, they would just get arrested. You know? He sounds pathetic. Yes, that is true. You're not the audience MAGA is. So long as they keep eating it up, he'll say anything. Yeah, but the problem with that is that, again, it's not the entirety of the MAGA constituency. It's a small portion of it that pay attention to this stuff day to day. I know it's crazy to people like us. I know it's insane. I know it's a little Joker-like to think about it, and I'm not joking. But the average person doesn't engage with politics that much. The average person, and I mean it, is just living their life. And they're getting like blips of news. They're like, oh, that's happening. Now, I think this is a bad thing because I think people should be paying attention when their country is getting brutally raped to death. You know? But most conservatives are not following Musk on his like 57... I was going to say 57 tweets a day. He tweets way more than 57 times a day. You know? Most people are not following. The most recent tweet, 5 seconds ago. 4 minutes. There. Exclusive, the non-political USAID employee 60 Minutes used to attack Trump is a personal blog where she called Trump a reincarnation of Mussolini and Hitler. Wow. Wow. Holy shit, 34 minutes ago? Man's slacking. If you track his Twitter activity, he averages 13 tweets an hour. Yeah, most people are just not following to this extent. And the constant, like, scattershot, blunderbuss firing out into the wilds, they should be arrested. They should be arrested. They should be arrested. I don't know how much that's actually doing to build a popular consensus, I don't know how much is actually getting done there. I genuinely don't know. Ontario pronunciation. Pronounce 1 hour mute in the language of your native tongue. Is it illegal to be wrong? I mean, it is very obvious that if Elon could do things unilaterally, he would just have everyone who ever said anything negative about him arrested. You know? And probably killed. Like, he would, like let's not... He's a Nazi. If he could, you would all be shot in the back of the head. Yeah, with no, like, 100%. Yeah. It's just this country is big and it's complicated, and there are a lot of people in this country who wouldn't be down for that. So, you know, he can't just, he can't just do it. You think media should just ignore his tweet? No, I don't think that ignoring him is going to make him go away. It kind of does, though. No, not really. Mark Carney's speech on right-wing populism. Whoever linked this to me like 10 minutes ago, how... This has 43 views.
Some right-wing populists that see current anxieties as an opportunity to stoke anger because anger is what's necessary for their project. After all, people don't demolish things when they're positive or optimistic. I know this. I know this from my time in the UK, where for years the rallying cry of Brexiters was broken Britain.
All right, I'm bored. He is a banker, I guess. One jacket instant style upgrade. Now that's the shit I'm here for.
Winter is finally, in my opinion, was designed as thicker to put on and was more protective. It became paired with white polo. Always a smart saw particular ensemble. I do think it helps a lot that the M65 is tailored.
All right, I agree. It's a good jacket. Horrid color? What the fuck do you mean? It's army green. Horrid color? Jesus. Japan loves American Army olive. They love American military wear. Lefties don't like USA Army shit. They literally do. Vietnam War counterculture protesters wore M65s and M51s, and it ingrained it in the cultural language of the protest movements. Chomsky and Bernie Sanders used to dress it when they were at their protests. And everyone wears cargo pants. You guys excited for Social Security to get cut? They can't actually do this. If they actually did start removing people's Social Security, because, like, Social Security isn't just a government entitlement program. You pay into it. If people have their money cut off, I honestly do it. I don't fucking care. It's not like my job pays into Social Security. I'm not getting the company that I work for, that is to say Alphabet, Google contracting me, they're not paying in their half on the Social Security tax. Got to do a damn bank run. Yes, there are far more eligible Social Security numbers than there are citizens in the USA. This might be the biggest fraud in history. This is what I mean by there being a disconnect between the kinds of people who follow Elon Musk religiously on social media, Nazis, and the average conservative, because the average conservative would not buy into this. That's not fraud. That's not fraud. It's legacy coding. They're morons. I know they're morons. You should just take for granted that anything Elon says ever is wrong. Wait, don't you pay taxes? So can't you get SS? Yeah, but I don't have a company paying their half. It's a whole thing. Social Security. It's a whole thing. Look at the post edits. They posted this without the redactions, lol. The Doge Twitter account initially posted this without redacting anything. 1.9 billion of HUD money was just recovered after being misplaced during the Biden administration due to a broken process. These funds are earmarked for the... I'm not reading this shit. It looks boring as hell. But they just dropped these sensitive government files with no redactions at all. That's really funny. Yes? Okay, yeah. Click where it says last edited. You can't tell me what to do. The accelerationist in me demands it. He has to go after Social Security. He has to burn it to the ground. It's the only way. Republicans used to hate Social Security. They should do that again. Well, the only reason they were able to get away with hating Social Security back then was because people weren't yet reliant on it. Do you have any idea how tenuous retirement is in America? If you're not American, you genuinely might not know. But, like, you get nothing when you're older. Like, there's not, like, an innate safety net past a point. I don't know. You get your, like, Medicaid or Medicare, but, like, in terms of keeping yourself afloat. Hello, Capella. Now no one has a company pension anymore? Really? Yeah, really. You just die. That's the American retirement plan. Used to be you had company pensions. Not anymore. Wait, do you not have pensions? Chat, who here has a pension? A meaningful one. Yeah. Not so much anymore. You've got three things. You've got pensions, you've got your 401k, and you've got Social Security. Social Security, stupid system, but whatever. You pay into it. If you have an employer, they pay their half, whatever. Not a lot of money, okay? 401k, that you pay into privately. That gets floated on the market, so good luck if there's a stock market crash. And the pension, who even knows? Because no one has them anymore. But pensions, no one knows what those are. I certainly don't. Isn't the fastest growing demo of newly homeless the elderly now? I don't know, but probably. And then they die, so they fall off, right? Well, that's nice, Masagui. I've never even met someone with a real pension. You'd have a difficult time finding a young person who has a pension, I'll tell you that much. Kind of like Israel, 1/3 of Holocaust survivors in Israel live in poverty. Yeesh. Vosh, you just pay into Social Security at double the rate us with regular employers do. Yeah, I have to pay twice as much. Like, it's the same amount, but I'm paying both halves of it. Which sucks. Stupid. Yeah, I need to get the no tax on tips for all the donos. Make an LLC, you idiot. You know that wouldn't meaningfully fix it, right? Because the LLC is just the corporate entity around the money that I was getting anyway. Like, I would be the LLC. I'd be paying out the other half via the corporate entity. Though there are tax benefits to having an LLC. Doesn't Vosh LLC have a nice ring to it? Yeah, it does. I agree. Yeah, it helps with taxes, but not with that tax. My sister's very much a leftist, but she somehow believes RFK Jr. is going to do his Maha nonsense. That's crazy. That's a wild one for sure. Dude, I'm so tired today. You can make big money by buying cheap eggs in Canada and selling for a markup in the USA. Not a bad idea. Feel like any contact with that industry would put me at risk of getting H5N1, though, which I'm not interested in doing. Oh, yeah, did you guys see this one? This is a classic MAGA moment right here. Jan 6 rioters argue pardons apply to charges, including murder plot, child porn. Defendants argue that Trump pardons should absolve them of additional crimes, some discovered during investigations of the Capitol riot. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Of course. Isn't it crazy that Democrats aren't even leaning on this? Like, isn't that fucking insane? Like, that Democrats aren't screaming from the rooftops about the multiple convicted child rapists, pornographers, whatever, from the January 6th crowd that Trump pardoned and set back out onto the streets, who then, like, immediately went to prey on children. Like, isn't that wild? It is the easiest layup in the world. Yeah, right after getting pardoned. Jan 6 rioter pardoned by Trump faces child sex charges. It's after the pardon, you know? It's just crazy Democrats don't talk about this. But they're eepy? Yeah. That one Michelle Obama speech has done more damage to the party than anything before. So it might literally be responsible for everything that's happened since with Trump. Because the Democrats adopted that as their mantra, you know? They go low, we go high. Like, they took that with pride. That became like a rallying cry. Guess it's not technically a broccoli haircut. Fundamental misunderstanding of how politics works on Michelle Obama's part. Well, yeah, she's just like a lady, not a political mastermind. She was first lady. She did go to Harvard, to be fair. Yeah, but that doesn't make her like a political mastermind. What is this? I'm getting so many weird links. I'm getting confused and disoriented today. Maybe that's just the disposition.
And that's what you're seeing right there, right now. Modern day mind come. And so we need to break this down in this proper analysis. One of the largest voices out there that is calling for me to step down is the public advocate. I still don't know what he does. Because it's hard to really serve the city when you wake up at noon and then try to go out. If I step down, the public advocate becomes the mayor. You know, so can you imagine turning the city over to him? That is the top reason not to step down. When you don't have a job, you can go all over the city.
Hey, I have a question. You all have to promise to not get mad. How much does the black community in New York City actually defend Eric Adams? Because he surrounds himself with black people every time he does a public speech. He is, of course, himself black. I've noticed this. Is this like an actual, genuine community support, like an intra-racial community support element? Or does he just, you know, basically use them as political cover? The people in the front row are white. Answer the question. Nah, everyone hates him here. A lot of them are from his local church. Wonder if he's done any kickbacks there. How bad is the approval rating for Eric Adams? I'm seeing an Emerson College polling one of quite recently, 27% favorable rating. 27%. 27% favorable rating. Jesus. Why is everyone saying 100%? What did I say? Apparently 74% of black voters have an unfavorable opinion of Eric Adams. Huh. I don't know what a good rating is for a mayor. Not 27% favorability. I'll tell you that much. Oh, the chat poll. Okay. Probably not good. It's so blackpilling, dude. It's genuinely so fucking blackpilling that Schumer and Jeffries won't even comment on this. They're like extremely corrupt, was federally investigated under the Biden administration. Extremely unpopular mayor who is openly kowtowing to Republicans in an effort to dodge an investigation, and they're still like, no, we won't comment on it. Dead party? Dead fucking party. Dead party. Adams was Jeffrey's number 2 choice in that election. Oh, I bet. Do we play the Simpsons clip again? No, it's gone beyond that. Speaking of overt pedophilia, Trump's trying to bail out Andrew Tate. It makes sense, right? Like, for one, the Trump administration and the people around it are going to do everything in their power to kind of like consolidate public support, and getting like Hitlerite, sexually inexperienced 16-year-old boys who will later be 18-year-old boys who can then vote. Like, it makes sense to consolidate. It's like a big top G move, right? Epic Sigma warrior against the deep state. Donald Trump reaching across the world to save Andrew Tate from, I don't know, the Jews trying to arrest him or whatever, make the libs cry. The UK is also charging him. Yeah, but, you know, Romania is the country he lives in. Vance has stated he believes the Romanian election was rigged. You mean, wasn't the Romanian election the one where they, like, actually redid the count? because there were anomalies found? Well, all right. The Trump administration has urged Romanian authorities to lift travel restrictions on influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate. The administration is ideologically pro-rape, pro-pedophilia, pro-abuse of women. This makes sense. Like, it's not incidental, right? Like, things like that aren't things they overlook in pursuit of some other goal. They are the goal. U.S. officials broached the subject during a phone call with the Romanian government, advocating for the return of Tate's passports and permission for them to travel while awaiting court proceedings. The diplomatic effort was further amplified when Richard Grenell, Trump's envoy for special missions, met with Romanian Foreign Minister Emil Hurezeanu at the Munich Security Conference last week. While Hurezeanu declined to comment on the specifics of their discussion, his spokesperson emphasized the independence of the Romanian judiciary, stating the courts operate based on the law and due process. Well, that's a novel distinction, you know, relative to how things are currently functioning in the United States. I mean, I know why, but why, lol? That's literally it. It's literally Andrew Tate is a person that we can use. He will be another mouthpiece for the administration. They're doing this with Eric Adams right now. Eric Adams is facing criminal investigation for his obvious corruption. By lightening the pressure on him, you have him as like a permanent agent. Andrew Tate will be a permanent agent. Everyone will be a forever mouthpiece, you know? Didn't you say he was nowhere near the size he used to be? He isn't. Andrew Tate is a lot less popular than he was back during his peak. Like, again, with all these conservative influencers, you have a very predictable, like, you have this meteoric rise. And the thing to remember is that all of them are functionally saying the same things, right? The fundamental message of all of these people is that men are entitled to something that is natural and right. It is a power and an experience they no longer have because of modernity. The reason they don't have it, it can be because of multiculturalism, it can be because of feminism, whatever. But fundamentally, it's the reason they're not getting laid, it's the reason they're not happy, you know? And the only way to address this is to become super duper ultra far right, be angry all the time, be a top G, whatever else. They all have the same message. They're really not that interesting or novel. You can like literally get Jordan Peterson from Andrew Tate, or vice versa. They intersperse very, very easily, you know? It's just a matter of like the way the message is delivered. It's the tone. The tone of Tate versus Jordan Peterson, very different. The tone, the delivery, but the underlying message is pretty much the same, right? So, you know, the administration's basically just looking to use these people as an indefinite mouthpiece. But they rocket up in popularity because they're so samey, and a lot of these people are very mentally unstable. A lot of them are criminals, you know, rapists, pedophiles, whatever else. Inevitably, their instability, that's what happened with... It was instability with Jordan Peterson. It was criminality with Tate, though instability played a factor in that. You know, they have a fall off, and they just become parodies of themselves. Jordan Peterson has just been a parody of himself for years now. Andrew Tate literally gave up on being a messenger to people and started just like calling people the N-word on Twitter because it drove blue checkmark engagement and he got a little bit of money from Twitter. Like literally, like when you no longer have the ability to promote any kind of meaningful message, you consolidate, you close ranks around the people who already care about you and you milk them for all that they're worth until eventually there's nothing left, you know? That's what happens. Tate also did the Sieg Heil? Yeah, because he wanted attention. That was it. When Elon Musk did the Sieg Heil, Andrew Tate was like, yeah, I'll also do the Sieg Heil. He got some attention for it. That's it. There's no real argument there. There's not a message. There's no attempt at reaching out to new people, you know? He just plays off his audience to make as much money as he can from them. Yeah, Tate has already said that he'll move back to the United States now that Trump has won if he gets the chance to anyway. So, mega, he told Newsweek at the time. He's not a principled Nazi. Basically, none of them are. Wasn't he British? He's British Romanian. British American, I thought? No. Praying the Romanian authorities put him in the oubliette. God willing, inshallah. He would like that, inshallah, because he pretends to be Muslim. Somebody in chat asked whether or not I covered the Munich security conference. I don't think I did I? I covered some stuff that happened after the fact, but I didn't really talk about the Munich security conference. Like, not directly. Do it now? Don't tell me what to do. Maybe. Wasn't the J.D. Vance speech really bad? It was awful. All of the descriptions that I've heard of J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich security conference were to the effect of like, the only consequence of this is that everyone listening is thinking about how they're going to deal with a post-American global hegemony world, you know? Like, all the European allies of ours are like, okay, well, we can't count on them anymore. How are we gonna, you know? Yeah, we'll watch it. It's important. It's important.
We continue with your Super Bowl celebrations on this Friday, but we do need to step away.
Bad quality. Better quality?
Of the United States, Mr. J.D. Vance, who was here last year as senator, and we are very happy that he...
Well, thank you, and thanks to all the gathered delegates and luminaries and media professionals, and thanks especially to the hosts of the Munich Security Conference for being able to put on such an incredible event. We're, of course, thrilled to be here. We're happy to be here. And, you know, one of the things...
Vance also met with the current AfD chancellor, candidate leading German politicians, accusing him of interfering in the election. Yeah, I've seen that. 3 days after his speech, European leaders started announcing proposals to send troops to Ukraine. His suit isn't ironed. You don't iron a suit, silly. There was just an emergency meeting in Munich about how to deal with the current situation because, amongst other things, Europe isn't invited to the Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Yes, I did see that. The United States is literally just like talking to Russia and what, Saudi Arabia? Not even Ukraine. Incredible stuff.
That I wanted to talk about today is, of course, our shared values. And, you know, it's great to be back in Germany. As you heard earlier, I was here last year as United States Senator. I saw Foreign Secretary David Lammy and joked that both of us last year had different jobs than we have now. But now it's time for all of our countries, for all of us who have been fortunate enough to be given political power by our respective peoples, to use it wisely to improve their lives. And I want to say that, you know, I was fortunate in my time here to spend some time outside the walls of this conference over the last 24 hours. And I've been so impressed by the hospitality of the people, even, of course, as they're reeling from yesterday's horrendous attack.
Wow.
And the first time I was ever in Munich was with my wife, actually, who's here with me today, on a personal trip. And I've always loved this city of Munich, and I've always loved its people. And I just want to say that we're very moved, and our thoughts and prayers are with Munich and everybody affected by the evil inflicted on this beautiful community. We're thinking about you, we're praying for you, and we will certainly be rooting for you in the days and weeks to come. Now, I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get, but
he's so boring. Did you see the Nazi accounts on Twitter were glazing him over this speech and posting edits with like glowing eyes? But they always have to edit the fuck out of him because he looks like a fat, retarded baby at all times. So, unlike Trump, who actually can hit a pose, with JD Vance, they have to like, they really have to put the work in, you know?
We gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security. And normally, we mean threats to our external security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within.
Oh, yeah.
The retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany, too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy.
So it's probably the main reason why JD Vance and Elon have been so aggressive at trying to influence European governments. Remember when JD Vance said in an interview that the United States should engage in retaliatory action against the EU for potentially banning Twitter for not holding up to their hate speech guidelines? They understand, and they're correct, by the way, that one of the major threats to their ability to take over this country completely, to really, truly, like, rape it to death and turn it into like a Fourth Reich kind of deal, is Europe. Because they and Trump are not popular in Europe. They don't have the cultural pull there that they do here, and Europe not going along with what we do both serves as a counterbalance culturally and economically, you know?
But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty.
You can really feel from the speech that JD Vance was heavily immersed in like Gamergate to alt-right rhetoric, because the disingenuous appeal to freedom of speech and democracy is almost like over the hill with the Republicans, you know? Like, if you look at how Donald Trump and Elon are tweeting and talking, they do talk about, like, freedom of speech insincerely, but in a lot of cases, they're just full-on, like, everyone who disagrees with me should be arrested, you know? JD Vance leans on this quite a bit harder, this, like, debate bro-esque, well, actually, we are the true purveyors of freedom of speech, and we are extremely troubled by Biden's crackdown on freedom of speech by using the FBI to put pressure on Facebook, and it's like, they know they're lying, but don't they always?
The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build, As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting.
Wait, to be clear, I don't have to like debunk the stupid shit he says, right? I don't have to, right? We're all on board. I know there are people who come in sometimes and they're like, well, this guy's not even debunking. It's like, dude, I've been doing this for like 5 years. Literally everything they say is a lie or a misrepresentation.
Anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
Okay.
I looked to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief.
Wait, yeah? Wait, yeah, that's like self-evidently true. Protection, the free speech protections don't mean that the stuff you do don't run the risk of offending people? Yeah. What is that? That's a bad translation, but yeah? Yeah, but that's like obviously true. That's like anyone would agree with that. I don't know why that was phrased like it was really scary. You know? I don't think the argument from the judge was that a conviction would be predicated on having offended someone. At least that wasn't like stated in the statement.
And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own.
I guess like the only thing that I can say as like a resounding statement here, or I guess like to sum all this up, leaving aside the fact that he's lying about and misrepresenting all this, there are states and counties and cities in the United States where you can be arrested for feeding homeless people. Like if you want to talk about the overreach of the state, sure. I think, look, I'm not going to sit here and argue disingenuously that European countries don't overreach. There are times when I see the consequence of hate speech laws in the European Union, and I think, you know, as an American, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. There's no objective line at which to draw, like, you know, the utilitarian benefits of being more prosecutorial versus being more lenient when it comes to stuff like that. I don't know. There are arguments you can make. It's complicated. All I'll say is that like any argument you could make, well, like right now, Twitter is basically just like a nonstop Nazi hate rally coordinated by Elon Musk, where he calls for the arrest and deportation of anyone who criticizes him. And in all across America, people are arrested every day for insane shit. And I think that you can take a principled stance and protest against all of this without buying into J.D. Vance's insincere, you know, hey guys, ignore the fact that I'm literally fucking a Nazi. I'm super concerned about freedom of speech right now. You know?
After British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones. warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
Yeah, you find anyone who's been like charged with that? Remember when Jordan Peterson spent years fear-mongering about people getting arrested and convicted for using the wrong pronouns, and then it didn't happen to anyone ever? Was it Bill C-16? Was that the name of it? Where he was literally like hysterical about it. Oh, they're going to come after all of us. They can arrest me. I would rather die in prison than censor myself and not use biological pronouns or whatever. And then it never happened to anyone. I just like, come on.
Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation.
Oh, wow. I literally referenced this earlier. I literally, like, never forget, by the way, that the inquiries the FBI made into Meta and, like, the requests for people's accounts to be looked into, deleted, whatever else, the Trump administration did the exact same thing during the first Trump term. The exact same thing. Exact same thing. Literally, the process was identical. Though it was more legitimate in the case of the Biden administration, because there were some very like pointed, censorious attempts at attacking people with Trump, whereas with Biden, they were more interested in general lessening of misinformation surrounding COVID, stuff like that.
Misinformation like, for example,
Trump wanted Chrissy Teigen banned from Twitter for saying mean things about him. Yerp.
The idea that coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with...
He is completely lying about the safe access zones in Scotland. Okay, I appreciate you providing that link. I just don't want you providing that link to lead to the implication that anything he's saying is true. Like, so you've debunked this. That's great. But we should assume it's all auto-debunked, basically, is what I'm saying, you know? I just don't want people to be like, okay, well, that's been debunked. But, like, here's another thing, like, maybe there's some truth to it. You should just always assume the professional liars are lying.
With an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
Look at all these guys. They're like, man, we need to raise military spending. Literally.
Now, we're at the point, of course, that the situation has gotten so bad that this December, Romania straight up canceled the results of a presidential election based on the flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors. Now, as I understand it, the argument was that Russian disinformation had infected the Romanian elections.
This is a great line to sell to Europeans right now. You should downplay the threat and influence of Russia. I hear that goes really far. I hear that goes really, really, really far. Man, you know all that time that I spent arguing with tankies who argued that, like, Euromaidan was a Western-backed such and such? We really were out of time on that one, weren't we? Like, if things were desynced chronologically just by a few years, you would have had so-called anti-American tankies literally repeating U.S. State Department talking points, wouldn't you? Because right now, the official position of J.D. Vance and the Trump administration, I guarantee you, is that Euromaidan was influenced by Obama and McCain, and that wokeness, and in reality, the people of Ukraine really wanted, and the ethnic persecution of Russian-speaking people within eastern Ukraine was, like, reaching a breaking point. That's crazy. We're all just one administration switch away from repeating State Department talking points, aren't we? Ain't it always like that?
But I'd ask my European friends to have some perspective. You can believe it's wrong for Russia to buy social media advertisements to influence your elections. We certainly do. You can condemn it on the world stage even.
Do you?
But if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with.
Hold on, wait. He's cooking with this one. I agree. We really should look at the way money influences politics. A little bit, you know? Is that so? Wait, what? So he's like admitting it happened, but he's like, well, you should have just rolled with it, I guess. Okay, I agree. We should have stronger democratic institutions, I guess. Okay.
Now, the good news is that
I'm glad I'm watching the full thing because I saw some clips. I didn't realize the applause was like this.
Then it wasn't very strong to begin with.
I need to literally like three people.
The good news is that I happen to think your democracies are substantially less brittle than many people apparently fear. And I really do believe that allowing our citizens to speak their mind will make them stronger still. Which, of course, brings us back to Munich, where the organizers of this very conference have banned lawmakers representing populist parties on both the left and the right from participating in these conversations. Now, again, we don't have to agree with everything or anything that people say. But when people represent, when political leaders represent an important constituency...
It's actually really interesting. So what he's trying to do here is transpose American political apathy onto a European political audience. He's not talking to random people. He's talking at the Munich Security Conference. You know? Basically like, oh, you know, the mainstream, the deep state is trying to censor both left and right voices. I'm not saying you should be pro-right. I'm just saying you should allow the discussion. But then you remember, like, in Europe, every one of these countries, well, most of them, I guess, have a bunch of different parties in parliament. Like, it's not like how it is in America. There is a political apathy in, like, France, Germany, whatever, but they have a much wider Overton window and range of... Like, this just doesn't land. And the appeal to American conservative libertarianism, this like, well, you know, I'm not saying you should be a Nazi. I'm just saying, like, you should let Nazis talk all they want for free speech, you know? It appeals to values that are very prominent in America and very much less so over here. Right? You get what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's so tone deaf. It's literally like tone deaf. This isn't about European values. This isn't about what they care about. This is just like, what if we transpose 2019 era American culture war talking points over here? Serbia has been marching the last 2 months over a train station collapse and corruption. Hasn't Greece as well? Didn't Greece recently have they opened a new train line and there was like a head-on collision, and I heard there have been protests recently in Greece because audio released recently of a bunch of college students talking and then the horrific audio of them dying in the crash, and it was like a whole thing. Like, the political environment here is very, very different. Americans are so apathetic and so like closed off to local politics. They just engage in the national culture war. Those that do. I don't know.
It is incumbent upon us to at least participate in dialogue with them. Now, to many of us on the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation.
Okay, incredibly tone deaf. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking how heavily can you lay this shit on, man? Yeah, from over in America, it seems like commie bullshit, basically. Basically, like, the deep state has taken root in your countries, and it's like communism. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm literally just, like, wing-dinging this shit. I'm doing ad-libs, mad-libs. I'm slapping words, magnet words on a fridge.
Through who simply don't like the idea that somebody with an alternative viewpoint might express a different opinion or, God forbid, vote a different way or, even worse, win an election.
See, like, this is so specific to American conservatives. Again, I'm not an expert on Europe, let alone every country in it. God, right? It's a complicated place. But, like, this aggrievement, this idea of, like, you know, the censorious deep state is preventing us conservatives from speaking up and so on and so forth. Like, this is born of, like, a very concentrated political moment. Did the AFD like this speech? I'm sure the AFD liked this speech, and you know what? This might have been for him. It might have literally just been for them. That might have been it. That might have been the group that he's meaning to talk to here. At the Munich Security Conference, he might be talking past all of our allies, all of NATO. He might just be talking to the AFD, which this rhetoric probably works with. Great. Yeah, the three people clapping are the fucking AFD reps.
Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target. And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing.
The AFD does believe that the EU is the deep state ruler. The AFD is extremely American. You guys know that, right? Have you seen the AFD memes? They're extremely online. They're literally like 4chan, the political party. They're very American. Like, the cultural, yeah, the coding of their arguments and the way they talk is very, very, very American. Not German-style Nazism, like 1940s or whatever, subservience to the state, one blood, that kind of stuff, you know? Obviously, those are components, but it's more like the watered-down neo-Nazism that you see on American forums. You understand what I'm talking about, right? There's a reason why the AFD has shot up in popularity only recently, as opposed to, like, emerging from a long-standing conservative tradition, like, say, Meloni's party in Italy, right? Like, basically Mussolini's party. In that case, you have, of course, fascists. You have conservatives, you have fascists, but you have them kind of locked in the legacy of that European country's experience with fascism, whereas the AFD genuinely seems to be, for the most part, completely guided by internet neo-Nazi shitposters. Does that make sense? It's the same with Reform UK. Yeah, 100%. Reform UK is the same way. Le Pen is a lot more France-coded, I would say. There's more legacy. Don't be mistaken, the AFD is full of former neo-Nazis. No. I'm not saying that they're not real Nazis. I'm saying that America is the center of the world culturally, and I think that some political parties are more likely to borrow from American conservative or Nazi talking points than others. You know? There's a reason why AFD posting is so prominent online. How often do you see the Italian fascist Meloni posting, like, perfectly aligning with American alt-right talking points? I've seen it a few times, but it's definitely not as common, especially considering the fact that Meloni actually leads Italy. The AFD hasn't won yet. They're all globalists. These damn Nazis are globalists. Yeah, I will never forgive this. Germany, you have a lot to answer for. This is maybe the worst thing your country has ever done. But, like, look at this. Can you understand by looking at this that this isn't about Germany or Germans and is about American racist forum posters, like on 4chan or Twitter? You understand what I'm talking about, right? This billboard was not made for Germans. Anyway, let's watch the damn speech.
We think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, How will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we are defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people.
Was this really like the best possible time to do the Gamergate free speech speech? The Munich Security Conference? Like, the audience is full of generals. Like generals, like not political officials in the, you know, in the strictest sense, but fucking, you know, thick-necked, steely-faced, crew-cut generals.
Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making.
There are NATO members sleeping in the audience.
If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results? But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America.
Okay, this speech was a big enough deal that it has a lengthy Wikipedia page and a reaction section. I just want to see what they're saying. CNN noted that most conference attendees who listened to Vance's speech sat stony-faced, interrupting the vice president's speech with sparse and modest applause. Vance only briefly mentioned the Russia-Ukraine conflict, disappointing attendees that had hoped to learn more about the Trump administration's plan for peace negotiations. An unnamed Eastern European representative said that Vance's speech was the only topic other officials were discussing during the summit. All right, well, no press is bad press. Several U.S. and European diplomats and officials expressed dismay as the speech occurred, with one claiming that it led to a room full of people with their mouth open. A former House Democratic member accused Vance of victim-blaming Europe for its response to election interference by Russia, said Vance was interfering with European elections. John Cornyn, Republican senator for Texas, okay, we know how this will go, expressed hope that the speech caused Europeans to realize that their free ride on the coattails of America had ended. Yep, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Commenting on J.D. Vance's speech, German Minister of Defense Boris Pistorius said Vance's comparison of parts of Europe to authoritarian regimes was not acceptable. The head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, I don't know what country that's from, said she had the feeling that the U.S. was trying to pick a fight with us. Foreign Minister of Sweden, Maria Malmer Sternegard, declined to directly comment about Vance's mention of the Quran burning convictions. Former PM of Sweden, Carl Bildt, called Vance's speech, quote, significantly worse than expected, and accused Vance of blatant interference in the German election campaign in favor of far-right AfD. Prime Minister of Norway shit-talked it. Lamont referenced ideological war against Europe. Politico described the speech as a wrecking ball to the summit, having brought culture war to Europe. Brought? It was already there. Fact-checking, Scotland. Donald Trump praised Vance's speech. Nice. So literally no positive words from anybody from Europe. Except for, I assume, the AfD.
You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail. Whether that's
the fact that they call single speech interference them out. No, well, it is, though. That's 100% true. Musk and J.D. Vance are absolutely trying to push AfD to win big in the coming elections. And also, stuff like this used to be completely taboo. Like, an American elected official going abroad and using what's supposed to be a security conference speech to instead lambast culture war talking points and basically like repeat misinformation that plays into the propaganda of the right wing in the country that he's speaking in. This was totally off the table until very recently, it seems. So no, that's fair. Karas is Estonian. Well, they produce Disco Elysium, so I'm pro Estonia.
The leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Oh,
Today,
yeah.
Almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. And asylum
it literally is just like an AFD speech, you know?
Seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting.
I love how effortlessly he shifts between, like, we have the infinite mandate of 1.8%, and like it or dislike it, they voted for it. Like, you alternate between this is what the people currently want in droves versus like, well, it happened, and like procedurally Brexit happened and they didn't undo it, so it happened.
For political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children.
Yeah, I know that the UK isn't in the EU anymore, but they are still in NATO, and they're not happy with Brexit. A lot of them regret Brexit. It didn't go well, you know? My hope is that the wild unpopularity of this administration will make certain talking points less popular. Because there are a lot of people in Europe who would agree with this anti-immigrant rhetoric, but they also hate J.D. Vance, you know? Maybe it gives him like a bad taste in your mouth, you know? Seeing him rep those positions. Well, maybe.
And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing
this is a security
dismissing their
conference.
concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process.
Sir, these are generals. You can tell by the pretty shiny buttons on their shoulder or whatever. Is this really the right time to be doing this?
Process protects nothing. In fact, It is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Ooh. Yeah, that's the clip that I saw. And how well it played out. How is that even slightly comparable? Me, when my brain is molten soup, and has been pulped by the culture war. Remember that, like, 17-year-old girl with the pigtails who asked you to stop mining as much? The one who was, like, largely popular and was held up and celebrated in a lot of circles, at least until she got really based and started to be, like, a socialist and anti-Zionist. Yeah, well, so basically, like, let Elon Musk rule you. What, who is this for? You can survive a few months of Elon Musk? Motherfucker, he's not even an elected official in our country. Do you mean he's gonna be for them too? What do you mean by that? You can survive a few months of Elon? You know what? This isn't even AFD posting. This is purely like Elon wrote this into the script. What else can you say? Literally, like, what else can you say than that? Like what? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? You can survive Elon? The comparison is insane. For no reason, you're implicating yourself by suggesting that they'll have to be burdened with Elon, a thing they'll have to survive. In what capacity would this survival take place? Insane.
But what German democracy...
Let's hear that crazy delivery again.
Democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding. You guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy...
That pause for the audience, and you literally hear a guy clearing his throat.
Can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy... What no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in
the real magic of democracy is manufacturing and then sustaining the collective imagination of a mandate that gives you infinite leeway to do whatever you want. Exactly.
Great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, "Do not be afraid." We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
The crazy thing, too, I guess, is that in addition to this entire speech being awful, like morally in its intended effect, it also doesn't, like, what is the central message of this? It seems like the only thing he really wanted to say was, don't arrest people for being conservative. But he didn't even deliver on that point very well. A lot of this was like empty euphemism. You understand what I'm talking about? Like, if there was an intended message, an intended delivery here, it wasn't even followed up on very strongly. This speech was so bad it led to an emergency meeting. Yeah, I saw this. And then of course you have the the Ukraine peace talks being held without Ukraine or anyone in Europe. Despite their continuous involvement in providing Ukraine weapons. This was aimed at an American audience. No, I don't think it was. I think it was aimed at the AfD. I think that the German election is going to be the main... the German election and what happens after it is going to be like the pivotal moment in how Europe responds to the second Trump administration. Not only because Germany is the largest country there and the most administratively powerful, not only because it's, you know, the AfD is like the most far right of the viable parties in those countries, but also because, is Germany really that much of a hegemony in the EU? Kind of, yeah. But we need to see, like, to what extent will this work, you know? The most recent polls for the election seem dark. You have linked me an image that is not a poll. The image you've linked me isn't a poll. Germany. We did just see the youth vote. We did just see the mock election they did for the youth, in which the highest, the Die Linke was the most supported. We're going to have to see how it goes. Die Linke, 21%. Yeah. Opinion polling for the German federal election. Here we go. We'll go by the Wikipedia aggregate because I don't know as much about European elections or the, you know, the exact way in which they, the polling data is sort of structured. Yeah. But up here, you have the Union, the Conservatives, then over here, the AfD in second, and then the SPD, the Green Party, and then Die Linke has been rising. Sorry. Die Linke has been rising, but they're still down here in the shits. They are above the 5% threshold, at least in the polling. We'll have to see. How long do we have? When is the election again? How long do we have? Eight days. Phew. Phew. 8 days. Latest polling has Die Linke at 9% in general. God damn, the dark horse comeback. No pun intended. Well, even if Die Linke ended up getting an astonishing 10%, you know, if you average that out, like 10% there, 15% for Green, 15% for SPD, you're not getting a majority. You're not getting a majority. But we'll see. What's the BSW? Pro-Russia party, basically. Oh, it's over? Hold on. Again, the unpopularity of Vance might negatively galvanize people against the AfD. Why is the AfD allowed to exist in Germany if they're literally Nazis? Because liberals are pussies. Also, you're forgetting there's another possibility. If the AfD underperforms in the election relative to the polling, the conservatives might be less willing to build a coalition with them because they no longer feel like the rising star. Right now, the AfD's popular mandate, as understood by the German public, it's built on their rise, not just their flat popularity, but their rise to popularity, which predicts a trend. If they end up underperforming relative to expected results, it is possible that it could kill their aura. But we'll see. We'll see. but they're the only right-wing party they can work with any electoral viability. Every other party above 5% is left-wing. Yep, and it's possible that as a consequence of that, we might get like a stagnated German parliament. Like they might, like, but if there is not enough willingness to work with the AFD, then it might just be a hung parliament. They might just, like, nothing might happen for a while. That's how we got Hitler. All of this is how we got Hitler. Or worse, the Libs form a coalition with them. The SPD is not going to form a coalition with the AFD. Not on their own. That would be, that'd be pretty wacky. What's the union? Conservatives. Imagine CDU and SPD coalition. I mean, again, look, this literally happened with Hitler, didn't it? Hitler was made chancellor because Hindenburg wanted to borrow his populist favor. Hindenburg was on the decline. Hitler was a rising star. He wanted to work with Hitler because he saw Hitler as like a sort of like populist force, right? If the AFD underperforms, maybe that kills some of the favor, right? It makes the AFD less attractive to work with. CDU-SPD coalition was literally the government pre-2021. I mean, that would be better than the AFD being part of the ruling coalition. It was von Papen. Hindenburg was senile at that point. Okay, all right, history nerds. I'm sorry, I don't fall asleep listening to the Rise of the Third Reich podcast or whatever. You think Europe could fall to fascism again? Yeah, but you can stop it if you like and subscribe. Ring the bell to get informed. You get the notifications if I put out new content. And donate if you're able to. And then I think we have a shot. Just saying, but the CDU has been picking up a lot of AFD staffers. That could potentially be a good or a bad thing. It's probably a bad thing. But look, we'll see. Keir Starmer says he wants ambitious security partnership with EU. Yeah. Yep, yerp, yep, yerp, yerp. Yep, yerp. Man, I am out of it today. The Die Linke comeback is solely because of a viral speech from one of their politicians after Merz collaborated with the AfD. Good. God, finally, someone left of center using social media properly. Oh, God. Sorry, I'm so out of it today. I did a lot of stuff before stream. I use up a lot of my social energy on stream, and then for the rest of the day, I kind of need a bit of a recovery period. I'm not good at, like, jumping into it after. Yeah. Can we talk fashion now? No. Fuck, I just bought a similar coat. Vosh beat me to the strip. I got this months ago, and there are only so many types of jackets. It's not a coat. Trucker jacket with lapel? Nope. Ain't a trucker jacket. Nice try. Can we talk maps? No. How do you style your beard? What products do you use? Weren't you just asking me what you can do as a Finnish person to stop fascism? You got a lot of questions, you know that? What makes something a coat versus a jacket? Length, mostly. A lot of parkas are a coat. You call a parka a coat, they tend to be pretty long. They said Denmark. It's all the same to me. It's all the same to me. Sorry, I'm really out of it. I feel like I might just be hungry. You know what it is? Thoughts on the infamous jacket? You mean shirt jacket? There's nothing wrong with it. It's an overshirt. Coats are outerwear, jackets are a mid-layer? No, I don't think so. There are plenty of jackets that are outerwear. Imagine a parka cut short like a bomber jacket. They make those, but it wouldn't be a parka. It would just be like a bomber with a hood at that point. But they make those. Ooh, you got some Lee Riders. Nice. Amanda Nice. That's really nice. That is nice. You haven't drank water in a while? That does help. Sometimes you have to make yourself drink water. Trust me, it's for your own good. What should I put my ramen in? Chicken stock. I'll ask you guys a favor. While I'm out of it, there's stuff I want to cover, like that Ashley St. Clair interview with the New York Post. I do it when I'm not tired, you know? I started stream late anyway. I've got stuff to do. Basically, what I'm saying is, fuck you. I'll see you tomorrow. If you've donated today, I'll read it tomorrow. I love you. It's just a weird day for me schedule-wise. Oh, I know. It's so hard. I know. Only so and so many hours of free content today as opposed to tomorrow. I know it's difficult. I understand. I understand. And I sympathize with you, okay? And I sympathize with you. Man, that big gulp had some crazy effect. It brought me back into the moment. You know? You understand. Working on a holiday? I actually forgot today's President's Day. Well, take care. Drink water, as I have so recently forgotten to do myself. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow at a proper time. Good luck. We're all going to need it. I see you, I hear you, okay? Exactly. All right.